The sun dipped low over the horizon, casting a golden glow across the quiet streets of Crestwood Hollow, a suburban enclave just beyond the bustling heart of Fairhaven City. Dan Harper had recently settled into this peaceful neighborhood, drawn by its tree-lined streets and the promise of a simpler life for himself and his two children, Sophie and Ethan. As the newly elected mayor of Fairhaven, Dan took immense pride in his role, but at home he preferred to shed the title. Here he was just Dana's single dad with a modest two-story house, a sprawling backyard, and a golden retriever named Max who bounded alongside him on evening walks. Most of his neighbors knew him as the friendly guy next door, not the man steering the city's policies, and he liked it that way. Crestwood Hollow was governed by a homeowners association, a detail Dan initially appreciated. He assumed it would keep the neighborhood tidy, mowing the communal green spaces, settling petty disputes over fence lines. On Moving Day, a handful of residents welcomed him with warm smiles and a tray of homemade cookies. They chatted about the HOA, mentioning its president, a woman named Victoria Langston. "She's a force," one neighbor said with a chuckle, "but folks around here call her Vicky sometimes," with a smirk. Dan grinned, familiar with the stereotype of overzealous HOA types. He figured she might be a stickler for rules, maybe the sort to fuss over unshoveled sidewalks or untrimmed hedges. He had no idea how far her influence would stretch or how personal their clash would become. His first run-in with Vicky came a week later. Dan was hauling bags of groceries from his SUV when she appeared at the edge of his driveway, her heels clicking against the pavement. She wore a tailored blazer, her auburn hair pulled into a tight bun, and clutched a binder emblazoned with Crestwood Hollow HOA regulations. "Mr. Harper," she said, her tone clipped and formal, "I'm Victoria Langston. Some call me Vicky. We expect everyone here to adhere to our standards." She gestured toward his trash cans, VY Seibel near the garage. "Those need to be out of sight except on pickup day. It's in the guidelines." Dan offered a polite nod, assuring her he'd comply. Her eyes lingered on him, assessing before she strode off. He brushed it off as harmless. Micromanagingevry neighborhood had its quirks, right? But Vicky's control went beyond trash cans and lawn ornaments. Over the next few weeks, Dan settled into Crestwood Hollow. Sophie, 12, and Ethan, 9, started at the local schools, relying on the district's bus system, a lifeline for Dan, who often left early for city council meetings. The bus stops dotted around the neighborhood were convenient, ensuring kids didn't trek too far. Vicky, meanwhile, seemed preoccupied with nagging other residents about paint colors or mailbox uniformity. She hadn't bothered Dan again, so he assumed their brief encounter was the end of it. At work, he juggled mayoral duties, approvying budgets, negotiating zoning laws, overseeing a new downtown revitalization project. Crestwood Hollow felt like a quiet retreat from the chaos of City Hall. Then came mid-October, when the school district announced minor tweaks to the bus schedules. The changes were routine, designed to streamline routes, and amounted to a few minutes shift in pickup times. The superintendent posted an update online and mailed notices to families. Dan barely registered at Sophie and Ethan's stops adjusted by 10 minutes, no big deal. But whispers began swirling through Crestwood Hollow. Parents at the park muttered about buses skipping the neighborhood entirely. Confused, Dan asked a neighbor, Tom, where the rumor started. Tom handed him a flyer, its bold red letters screaming, "Attention! School bus routes canceled in Crestwood Hollow due to new city traffic restrictions." A crude map showed bus stops marked with XS, as if they'd vanished overnight. At the bottom, in official-looking font, "Issued by Victoria Langston, HOA President." Panic rippled through the community. Parents fretted over how they'd get their kids to school. Some worked early shifts. Others had no second car. Dan's instincts kicked in. Nothing in his mayoral briefings hinted at canceled routes. He checked the district's website. Crestwood Hollow stops were intact. The flyer was a lie. Why would Vicky spread this? Was it a mistake or something deliberate? That evening at an HOA meeting in the clubhouse, he watched her distribute more flyers, rallying parents to prepare alternative plans. Her confidence was unshakable, her voice ringing with authority. Dan approached her afterward, keeping his tone casual. "Ms. Langston, where'd you hear the bus routes are canceled?" "I checked the district schedule. Our stops are still there." Vicky straightened, her eyes narrowing. I have reliable sources in city transportation. They say buses clog our streets, lowering property values. The district agreed to reroute them. It's for the best. She waved a hand dismissively. Fewer buses mean quieter, safer roads, more upscale living. Dan blinked, stunned by her logic. Property values over kids' safety? He pressed. I saw the official map. No changes like that were approved. Are you sure your sources are legit? She bristled. I trust my information. You should too. Then she turned on her heel and left. Her arrogance gnawed at him. This wasn't a misunderstanding, she was pushing an agenda, and it could wreak havoc. If parents believed her, they'd keep kids home, the buses would roll through empty, and chaos would erupt. Worse, it endangered children who depended on those rides. Dan texted the superintendent, confirming the route stood firm. The man was baffled by Vicky's claims. Furious, Dan posted on the neighborhood's online forum, attaching the district schedule and debunking the flyer. The bus stops remain active, he wrote. Please ignore misinformation from the HOA. Relief flooded the replies until Vicky fired back. City Hall privately confirmed the cancellation, she insisted, slapping an HOA logo on her post. Mr. Harper's sowing confusion. We're in direct contact with officials. The neighborhood split. Some parents demanded clarity from the district. Others asked Dan how he knew so much. A few recognized him from city events but didn't peg him as mayor. He hesitated to reveal his title, flashing it might escalate the drama, but Vicky's lies were spiraling. Then came a chilling rumor. She planned to block the buses physically, citing HOA authority over heavy vehicles. Dan's patience snapped. This wasn't just meddling, it was reckless. He called the superintendent, police chief, and city attorney. If Vicky tried anything, they'd be ready. A press release was drafted reaffirming the routes just in case. Monday dawned gray and tense, the new schedule's first day. Parents clustered at bus stops, phones in hand, torn between Vicky's flyers and Dan's post. Sophie and Ethan waited with him, sensing the unease. At 7:05, the yellow bus rumbled into VYEW right on time. Kids clambered aboard, the driver unfazed. Relief washed over Dan until he heard shouts up the street. Vicky stood at the next stop, arms crossed, a handmade sign reading "No buses allowed" taped to a traffic cone in the road. The bus slowed, its driver honking in confusion. Parents gasped as Vicky waved him off, yelling, "Turn around! HO rules ban you." Dan strode over, his voice firm. "Victoria, move that cone. The bus is authorized." She glared. "The HOA prohibits large vehicles during peak hours. City Hall approved this." The driver honked again, kids peering out the windows. Dan inhaled sharply. Time to end the charade. "Ms. Langston, I'm Daniel Harper, Mayor of Fairhaven. No such approval exists. You're obstructing public transit. Move or I call the police." Her jaw dropped, disbelief flashing across her face. "You're not the mayor, that's absurd." He pulled his city ID from his wallet, holding it up. "I assure you I am." "Step aside." The crowd murmured, recognition dawning. Vicky stammered. This can't be." A patrol car rolled up. Dan's call to the chief had paid off. She snatched the cone and stormed off, fuming as the bus rolled forward. Parents cheered, kids waved, and the officer warned Vicky against further stunts. Word spread like wildfire. The quiet new guy was the mayor, and he just shut down Vicky's scheme. Social media buzzed with gratitude and outrage at her lies. The HOA's VYC president, Lisa Grayson, posted an apology. Ms. Langston acted alone. The board never sanctioned this. But Vicky wasn't done. That night she ranted online, accusing Dan of abusing power to bully the HOA. "I'm protecting our property values," she wrote. "He's forcing buses on us." Neighbors fired back, the forum erupting into a shouting match. Dan consulted the city attorney. Vicky's flyers might qualify as fraud, and her cone stunt bordered on illegal interference. They opted to monitor her, while the district mailed letters confirming the routes. Still, Vicky called an emergency HOA meeting, aiming to ban buses outright. Lisa warned Dan she might sway the less informed members. "We need you there," she urged. The clubhouse overflowed that night, parents packed shoulder to shoulder. Vicky opened with a tirade about bus noise and road damage, claiming HOA autonomy. Shouts cut her off. "We need those buses." She zeroed in on Dan. "And our so-called mayor's bullying us with his title." He stood voice steady. "The city never canceled routes. You tried to block a bus, Victoria, that's the bullying. State law trumps HOA rules on school transit. The routes stay." The room erupted in applause. Lisa called a vote on Vicky's ban. It tanked 80 fan tram against. Her influence shattered, but her glare promised more trouble. Days later, Vicky filed a county petition to impose weight limits on Crestwood Hollow streets, a backdoor bus ban. She bragged online about imminent VY Tory. Dan rallied his team, scheduling a city-county hearing. They armed themselves with data. Buses caused negligible road wear, and Remo VYing them would spike traffic. The meeting drew a crowd: parents, officials, Vicky with her slim posse. She ranted about noise and cracks in the pavement, flashing blurry photos. The city engineer debunked her claims. The district warned of chaos without buses. Dan closed. "As mayor, I see no basis to disrupt a vital cerveau over petty gripes." Langston's misinformation already risked kids' safety. The county denied her petition. Vicky stormed out, defeated but unbowed. The press ate it up. Mayor Harper foils HOA's bus ban. Neighbors distanced themselves, and Lisa pushed for a recall vote to oust Vicky. Rumors swirled of her next move: road sabotage? Another blockade? Dan stayed VY Gillant, the district briefing drivers to report oddities. The recall night arrived, the clubhouse electric with anticipation. Vicky strutted in defiant, handing out new flyers. The vote was a landslide: 85 fan tram to remove her. She exploded. "This is a sham. You'll regret this." Then fled as cameras rolled. With Vicky gone, Crestwood Hollow exhaled. Buses ran smoothly, kids boarded without drama. She sold her house months later, slinking away to a condo across town, her rants fading into irrelevance. The HOA under Lisa rebuilt trust, launching community projects like a new park gazebo. Dan resumed his dual life: mayor by day, dad by night. Grateful the fiasco united neighbors. One evening at a block party, an older resident laughed. "Who'd have thought the guy with the dog was the mayor assembling our buses?" Dan grinned, raising a soda. "Just glad we kept the wheels rolling." In the end, Crestwood Hollow thrived, a testament to a community that stood firm against one woman's tyranny and won.
If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.